Okay, hi. So I'm here to tell another story this week about collecting signatures and what I learned from people. And I think it conveys how confusing and complex these rules are and how people misunderstand them. So while collecting signatures, I began to explain to a woman the exceptions that she could have in her home, that she was allowed to have, and I explained that you could have a child care provider, but only if that child care provider was scheduled for 20 hours per week for at least 42 weeks per year, and that that person was taking care of someone who was age of 14 or under, or someone who had a mental or physical disability. And the woman looked at me and said, "That's not true." And she said, "I got this from the city, and now I have a nanny for the summer. That's not 42 weeks, and I don't have them for 20 hours a week. They're just about 10 or 15 hours." And I said, "Well, let's read this. You're right. It says, what does not require a rental license?" And it clearly says exchange students, visiting clergy, medical caregiver, and child care. So the woman interpreted the paper that the city gave to her correctly on this piece of paper. However, this piece of paper is quoting from Chapter 6, Article 3, Chapter 10, 1001.2. To find out the definition of child care person, you have to go to Chapter 6, Chapter 2, Section 202, General Definitions, where you find what the definition of child care worker is, which I read explicitly because I do carry around the codes so that I can be very precise. And it says scheduled 20 hours. I went back to the January 17th meeting where Annette Irwin described this rule, and I wrote it down specifically here. And Annette explained this rule, and she said, "Why is this so specific? Everything happens for a reason." I'm quoting now. "We had some cases that came up. We had gotten a complaint, and when we went to follow up with the owner, said, yes, this is a person I have living here that does childcare for me. But the home didn't have what you would think of as a traditional need. This was a high school student living there, but the child care was a college student that was living with the family to give rides to the high school student when they needed it. So that was inappropriate in the city's mind. So for that reason, we had to get specific. So the city added the definition of child care way up in Chapter 2, but if you're in Chapter 10 of Chapter 6, you would not see the specific way child care is defined. So that woman did not know, the woman who read this did not know she was breaking the rules, and she could have been subject to $500 a day fines going back retroactively under the current rules. So Annette Irwin's story about we got some complaints and we found that this wasn't a 14-year-old, we found that this wasn't your traditional need. We don't believe that the city should define what a traditional need is. If someone wants to have a college student in their home driving their kid to their activities, they might not drive or have a car, then we believe the homeowner should choose that and have a right to make that decision. Not the city narrowing a definition because somebody complained about who was in their home. And I want to say something about this in terms of the 42 weeks and the 20 scheduled hours. We have Michigan State University in our backyard, and I'm a big fan. I graduated there and got my PhD in education. We're #1 in the country for education. I used the College of Ed babysitters all the time when my kids were growing up. They're outstanding. Anyone who had their kids at the lab school knows that our
30 seconds remaining.
Our family ecology has great students. You could not use those students throughout the year when they're in school because Michigan State is 34 weeks, and if they wanted to go home for the summer, they would not fit the 42-week definition. Nor could you have them in your home for the summer if you need that care when your kids are home from school. Legally, according to the rules, anyone who wants to see them, I will show them. Specifically, it's very hard to find in the code. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Rose.